shouldn't really talk about it. And I'm not arguing that you shouldn't talk about it. That's not my point. My point isn't that you shouldn't talk about it, but you shouldn't talk about it. And probably there should be experts who talk about it. And that's not okay. Anyway, my assumption is, I know it's sometimes it almost seems a little, douchey to do these.
I love how Dave Smith and his little friend right here. I don't even know what his name is. Gosh, what's his name? Let me see. Robbie Bernstein. Okay. Robbie Bernstein, whoever he is, okay? Like, I love how quick they are to mischaracterize the entire thing, right? The entire point is that it isn't like, oh, in order to talk about anything, you need to actually be there, right? It's more like if you cared enough about an issue, maybe you should actually show up and do some, research yourself, or to talk about something yourself, right? Or to, set your foot on the ground and do something yourself. Like, I don't agree with Douglas Murray. I don't think you necessarily need to go to a location physically in order to become more qualified in talking about it. But there is a point to be made there, in that when you don't actually visit the location in person, it just comes off as a little bit like weird or grifty if you spend so much time talking about it in a professional manner, right?
Recap episodes, but I don't know. It's just, I think this is probably going to end up being the biggest thing that I've ever done. I just have the feeling that this debate, I think me and Douglas debating would have been a big numbers show anywhere, but then you put that on Rogan and it's like, holy shit, this is going to be a big episode. And people love debates like that. So it was, going into it, it was like, okay, this is going to be a big thing. This is, I was very much looking forward to it. I'm a bit, I was fairly confident about how it would go. I'm happy with how it went. I think it's great. I'm a bit shocked at how
True. Listen to Tolosi. Please like the stream. He needs to feed his children, okay? There you go, pinned.
crazy it was. And in the way, I'll say this, right? This is an interesting, me and Douglas both, whatever side you're on, one of the really interesting dynamics I thought of the debate that stuck out to me was that, and I think even if you're like a Douglas Murray fan and you think, oh, he smoked me or whatever, which most people seem to not think is the case, but some of his, he's got a big fan base, and I have a big fan base, and so in those debates, there's always some people who are just firm on one side. The interesting thing that we could all acknowledge is that me and him debating would have been way more vicious on both ends on any other platform. It was only because it was on Rogan that we're both, so the whole time both of us like want to be going more vicious than we are, but we're both kind of holding back, which just made for like a strange and kind of funny dynamic to the debate. I know that what Rogan wanted was to have like a civil exchange of ideas and not have it turn into like a vicious food fight. And so I was like not going to disrespect that. And I understand why on that platform it should be
It wasn't even a vicious food fight. It's what debates should have went. Nobody was like personally insulting each other. Nobody was going like, "Oh, you are stupid. You are ugly," right? I'm pretty sure Douglas Murray the entire time he has been criticizing Dave's points. It isn't that he is like going after Dave's appearance or, his intelligence or something. The entire time he's been going after his points. Yeah.
a little bit different than it is on Piers Morgan or something like this. This is for long form conversations. So I go into it with that attitude. And I also think that's kind of why I didn't, there were areas I probably could have gone a little bit harder on him. But I also, look, I'll say this and then I'll shut up and let you talk for a little bit and you could tell me what you think. But I left there with the feeling, I would say even a half hour in to the show, I think the reaction that we're getting, I've had a lot of debates where the reaction is overwhelmingly that I won the debate. In this particular case, it's just that he lost it. Like, it wasn't even that I beat him in the debate. He started out with a 40-minute struggle session for Joe Rogan that just contained probably the longest stretched logical fallacy I've ever seen anyone open a debate with. Just a naked appeal to authority, completely unclear with what he was saying. He came in. So in this struggle session with Joe Rogan, I couldn't make this up. This is
more shall enter the fray.
Oh, cool. I don't know where that came from, but okay. Also, this is like complete cope coming from him. Like he's just coping. He's just coping because Douglas Murray fucking whooped his ass in that debate. Like it was barely a debate. It was more like it was more like an adult spanking a toddler for being a fucking little gremlin asshole. That's what's going on. All right. It's just it was not even comparable. The entire time Douglas Murray was throttling him in the ass, using him as a flexible rubber cum sock, stretching and weaving and poking holes in this condom of a man. All right. The entire time, Dave was getting destroyed.
Barely before I presented any thought or argument or opinion. I think it was before that. He comes in with this long that is an appeal to authority, an appeal to expertise. You're having these non-experts talk about issues that experts should talk about. And I'm not saying they should be censored, and I'm not saying they shouldn't talk about it, but they're talking about it and they're acting like they're experts. How are they acting like they're experts? Because they're talking about it. And when they're talking about it, it was just the most ridiculous argument, the most pompous, elitist, but essentially telling the host of the show and the entire audience.
Holy shit, Dave. Way to give away the fact that you actually think yourself that you lost the debate, okay? If it was somebody who actually won a debate, you would have said, well, like, I think I did pretty well, but, there's some things I could have improved on. That's how somebody who just won a debate would talk like, okay? Nobody talks like this if they won a debate. Nobody talks like this if they felt like they came out really strongly in debate, okay? Nobody does this.
Your opinion doesn't matter. Like, it was just a strategy to me that was like, you want to make everyone think you're a pompous asshole? It was wild. In there, sandwiched in this appeal to expertise.
I like how this so-called probably free marketplace of ideas kind of person, right? Like he's a libertarian, right? So he must believe in the free marketplace of ideas. I like how this like free marketplace of ideas person, the moment that he engages in the free marketplace of ideas, he's like, Douglas Murray is so mean, and he's just so British. Oh.
He trashes Daryl Cooper and Ian Carroll, whose names he doesn't even know, and admits that he's never consumed any of their material before. Yet he's trashing them and then claiming that you can only talk about these issues if you have expertise. Then when he's asked, does he have expertise? He goes, well, in some things.
I didn't get the notification. Oh, I don't know why.
Do you talk about things you don't have expertise in? Yeah, all the time I talk about things I don't have expertise in. Okay, well, why can you do that? Oh, you're not even understanding my point. It was just like the most wild thing. And it just became clear as the show went on that Douglas Murray came to do anything but debate me. Like, that was the theme of the entire show. He was there to do every single thing except have an exchange of ideas with me. Everything. It was either I'm going to go.
Dude, I cannot believe the cope that is happening right now. This is on another level of cope I did not think was possible. This is cope of another level, all right? Jesus Christ. What is happening here? Dave, are you okay? Holy shit. You look lovely today. Thank you for your hard work. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
These long appeal to authority, or I'm going to play ridiculous semantics games with you. Like when I say we're at war, you'll say, we at war, and you're not at war. Your military is having an action, and you're not. And just contradicting himself constantly. the things he like, instead of ever taking on my argument, he would think it was a big blow to be like, you haven't been there. You haven't been there. You don't have expertise. You don't. It's so bizarre because it's like, this would be. Look, I'm not saying I would.
I, I like how he's pretending that's the only point that he made, when that's only part of his argument, and I think Dave knows that. But I think Dave is actually just bad faith here. I think Dave knows this, but he's just being bad faith. Okay. The entire like this was the part that he's talking about is only like 10 minutes of that debate, probably like 15 minutes out of a 3-hour Joe Rogan episode. It was 5 minutes out of a 3-hour debate. Yeah, exactly. Or even if it's 30 minutes, it's just not. It's just not. Yeah, it's not the whole debate.
Agree with
either.
it, but at least it would make sense if Douglas Murray refused to debate me and then made a video about why he wouldn't debate me. And in the video, he said, because he doesn't have
Cringe.
expertise and because he hasn't been
Cringe.
there and because, okay. But once you agree to the debate, you can't just say, I have
shit.
expertise and you don't have expertise. You can't spend 40 minutes on that. It's like, demonstrate it, motherfucker. If you've been there and that gives you some greater insight, then demonstrate that and win the argument and counter what I'm saying. He would never, I mean, the entire thing, it was straw man. He would argue against what other people are saying. You know, if I said, oh, the NED and the USAID poured $100 million into the Maidan protests in 2014, he'd go, you know, sometimes libertarians speak as if everything that happens in the world is done by America, and really there are no other actors and nobody else has agency. And I'm like, what? No, all the people there have agency. Also, the U.S. poured $100 million into a street putsch that overthrew a democratically elected government. Like, what? No matter who I'd say, dude, his big like blows that he tried to land were, I'm not an expert, but I present myself as an expert. And then I said, I don't claim to be an expert. And he said, see, that's the problem. I haven't been there. I haven't been to Israel. So therefore, well, I don't know. Can't comment on it. And then at the end, what I literally cited that the supreme commander of the NATO forces and the 4-star general Wesley Clark said that the plans to overthrow 7 different governments came from Paul Wolfowitz, and he said I shouldn't say Paul Wolfowitz because that'll make people hate Jews or something like that. I can't mention the deputy defense secretary. Anyway, I don't know. You could tell me what you thought of it, but it was I don't really think I particularly won the debate. I think he just showed up trying to do anything he could not to debate. It was transparent. People could see through it.
That's not true. The debate was about your rhetoric. The debate wasn't ever about the facts of an event. It's about the meta. It's about the rhetoric. Because he recognizes that people like you and Joe Rogan have very slimy rhetoric, right? You guys ask questions in order to get to the results that you want. And that's what's so slimy about your debate strategies. The debate was never about the events of some situation or the events of some event or something. The debate was always about your rhetoric. It was always about the meta of the whole situation. Dave Smith here completely misunderstands what the debate topic was even about. He's not there to debate Israel and Palestine. He's not there to debate Ukraine. He's there to debate the meta. That's the point.
But it was smug and condescending, and that's why the reaction is what it is. That's kind of my thoughts.
First, it did an excellent job. It was a fun watch. I knew that this was happening for a while, and I was very excited for it. And that was a good recap there. To hop into the Paul Wolfowitz thing, just because it's the last thing you said, and then maybe we could address some of the others because they were all just such
semantics and vibes, pedantry and vibes. Yeah, sometimes the entire debate should be about the semantics. That's the entire point. Do you really think that all debates should be about the facts of a historical situation or about a geopolitical event? No. Sometimes it should actually be about the meta. It should be about the way that people debate. Yes, everything should be free on the marketplace of ideas. Sorry, open on the marketplace of ideas. Yeah.
Fascinating points. But let's start with the Paul Wolfowitz one. You mentioned the name, and it was so not the point of what you were trying to address. I think you guys were having a conversation about the regime changes in the area and and in the agency, and you were trying to say, no, America's clearly had an involvement. And he said that as an aside, and he scoffed, ho, 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 and you're like, well, why is that part funny? And then he circled it back into an argument with himself about the detailed.
No, like honestly, it's perfectly fine to debate on the facts of the matter. That's fine. But sometimes you should debate about the meta because eventually, let's just say you debated 100 conservatives, okay? And you noticed one particular pattern that 90 of these conservatives use. Is it not worthwhile to debate what that one pattern is? Is it not worth it to debate whether that one pattern exists? Of course. That's what the meta is. That's what debating the meta is. That's the entire point. It's worthwhile. Because once you debate it enough, once you engage with something enough, you begin to notice a pattern. And you should be able to stand on that pattern and provide evidence for it.
That he picked up, which was the guy's name, and then saying, well, what you're doing is bad for the Jews because it creates this this narrative that the Jews run the world, blah, blah, blah. And it's like that was a minute side point from the bigger thing that you guys had been arguing with. He managed to circle himself into his own argument, which I thought was
it's all just like when you see, and I know, look, there are a few people out there I did see who are like the hard, look, I mean, with all of these things, the hardcore Israel supporters are, some of them are just locked in and they think somehow that was a really great point when he told me I haven't been to Israel or so, like, but which is ridiculous. It's objectively a non-argument.
I thought you crushed him on that one, and it actually got kind of dropped. But I think you can tell me if maybe if I misheard this because it kind of moved quickly. He had said that you need to be there. You had a great point about the Nazi Germany thing, but then you had a secondary point, which is, weren't you there at the beginning of the Ukraine war and said we could win it? Which is, well, then I thought that was such a bombshell if you were on the ground.
Okay, as a leftist who went to a piece of shit college and learned how to win in debates, does that make you correct about anything? Wait, what? I don't really get what you're talking about.
Oh yeah,
You're doing the on-the-ground reporting, and you got the story wrong. So what does being there do if that just gives you actually a bad take?
David's in the chat.
All of them, listen, all of it. It's objectively, they're non-arguments. They're just non-arguments. You get in a debate, in the spirit of a debate, you get 0 points for that. You haven't been there. Okay, fine. So what's the point? Grapple with my argument. I'm sitting there the whole time like, let's debate this. He's like, let's debate Daryl Cooper and Ian Carroll, 2 people I know nothing about, admittedly, don't even know their names, admittedly have never consumed their content. That's what he starts with. And oh, by the way, you have to be an expertise in the subject matter that you talk about, while demonstrating none of it. But the idea, look, number one, the appeal to authority obviously is a logical fallacy. On top of that, Joe has had many experts on many different subjects. Douglas's issue, look, his issue isn't the proportionality, like he said, or that Joe Rogan doesn't have enough.
Hold on. Don't pop. I feel like people who live in the real world have friends and family. They speak the truth, but people who debate just attack them in unfair ways and discount their real world knowledge. Okay, it's perfectly fine to have real world knowledge, but technically you can get any kind of opinion from anywhere, right? Like, for example, if I went to China, I can definitely, if I try to search hard enough, I can definitely find a Chinese citizen who is anti-China, who is open to speak anti-Chinese propaganda, all right? Totally open for that. However, does that mean every single citizen in China is anti-CCP? That's not true, is it? But if I use my real life experience in that instance, I can paint every single Chinese citizen as anti-CCP. What really matters is statistics and facts, right? It's like conservatives say, facts and logic over, feeling and vibes or whatever, right? Facts don't care about your feelings, right? Because at the end of the day, right, any kind of anecdote are anecdotes. That's a fallacy. So of course you want to actually look for the statistics, the events of the matter, the facts, and from reputable sources. You can't just look at, these exterior sources, these third parties that are whatever, and on the ground whatever. Like this is why it doesn't really work out that way, you know? Just play a game and ignore any pushback. What do you mean? What do you feel like I haven't accounted here for? What the hell? I feel like I engage with your point in a good faith way. Fuck you.
Experts on. I mean, listen, like he
Asshole.
he didn't complain. I brought up, he was like, who have you had on who's on this side? And I brought up Coleman Hughes and like some other. Coleman Hughes is not an expert on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but he doesn't seem to have a problem with what he said on the show. He's going, oh, you've had way more people who are critical of the war in Ukraine and critical of the war in Palestine than those who support it on. What does that mean? Joe Rogan is an obligation to be a 50-50. What type of equity bullshit is this? Do you think Douglas Murray is upset that Joe Rogan had more pro-Trump people than pro-Kamala people on? Because he did. Is he upset about that? No, because he agrees with that. He agrees with. So if he agrees with it, he wouldn't have a problem. He just wants more people spouting his shit on there. But it's just such a weird thing to start the show complaining about. But then also, look, the fact is,
Come back tomorrow.
there are an unlimited number of experts, not an unlimited number, but a large number of experts on the Israel-Palestine conflict. Many of them are on the pro-Israel side. Many of them are critical of Israel. Like it's not the case that you can, and many people who have been to Israel, you know, agree with me. Many people have been there, agree with.
What happened, Lowell? Well, you know, what really tests my patience is when I give a good faith response to what is obviously a bad faith comment. So, you know, when I'm greeted with more bad faith, then yeah, come back tomorrow.
With Douglas, it's just a non-point. It's nothing. You get 0 points for that. And then of course, every time I would make, I mean, he was just evasive about everything. So if I go like, if I were to say, you know, like on whatever, the one point I said to him, he was like, the war wasn't over Ukraine entry into NATO. And I was like, okay, well, you got to admit they said forever that was their brightest red line. And then there's all these people at the top level of our intelligence who said, you know, when they say this is their red line, I think they really mean it. I think we better not flirt with crossing this red line. And then we kept flirting with crossing the red line. And he'd be like, oh, so now you trust the head of the CIA? As if like there's some contradiction, like, yeah, now I love the organization that is the CIA.
God, he's just mauling so hard. Gosh, Dave Smith is such a little crybaby little bitch, okay? I think he should whine more. I like it when he whines.
I'm just saying, even the CIA head himself admitted they all say this is the brightest of red lines, and I think they mean it, and I think this might lead to war. Like, you're not taking on the argument at all. And then he'd go, well, it wasn't about NATO expansion, and say something else about how Putin wants to constitute the Soviet Union. And I'd say, okay, well, the head of NATO literally said that Vladimir Putin sent him a draft treaty saying, just put into writing that you won't bring Ukraine into NATO, and then I won't invade, right before he invaded. And he'll go, the war was never about that. And then there's always this feeling that it's about the Americans, and it's always about what we're doing. And it's not, and it's like, you didn't counter the art, you know, like he's just not, he was there to do anything he could do except
I can't believe they're still saying this point, okay? Yes, joining NATO, that's fine. Why do you think countries join NATO? They join NATO because Russia is a terrifying fucking country. That's why. That's why countries join NATO. NATO is good. NATO prevented a genocide. NATO is good for the world.
Grapple with any of the arguments because, you know, on some level, he knows the shit is indefensible. I mean, I don't know what to say. And so I think in a weird way, I ended up just collecting kind of an easy win on it. I mean, I'm glad people are telling me I did a good job. I'm glad people feel that way. But it just seemed almost like, oh, he's just kind of hanging himself. I mean, think about like that. He came in and picked a fight with the moderator and then essentially the entire audience. It was like, Jesus Christ. And I just think that.
Well, yeah, he came in to do a 1v2 and he won.
whatever, at least from what I've seen of the reaction. And I do tend to like, you know, I tried my best to not like live in the YouTube comments, but on a show like this, it's kind of impossible for me to not, you know, when you do this on, it's not like if I do a show in front of my audience where I kind of, you know, I know my audience knows me very well and I know them very well. And at this point, the Joe Rogan audience knows me, but it's not the same. And it's such a huge show that you're like, oh, like I'm kind of interested how people responded to this. And it was, I mean, the second I looked through the comments, it was like exactly what I said after the show, exactly what everyone there, because
How is NATO good? Well, Russia never attacks any NATO countries directly, even though, you know, they tend to like to sabotage it. And NATO also bombed Yugoslavia in order to prevent the Bosnian genocide. So, yeah, these are like all multiple points in which NATO has, you know, in fact, done good things. So, yes, NATO is pretty based.
like left right after, and I asked a bunch of the people who were there and like watched it, like, hey, what'd you guys think? Brutally honest, like, what'd you think? And they were all like, oh, he just killed himself, like right away. And I was like, yeah. And then that's what every single comment was. Every comment was just like torching him for this shit. He couldn't even figure out what he was saying, it felt like, for the first like 40, and he took 40 minutes. He took like 40 minutes of the thing and just dragged it into this struggle session. It was so wild to sit there watching.
I'd love to take on some of the logic of the arguments he was putting forward. So the first one is we're not experts. And so if we aren't experts, we should be very easy to dismantle.
Yeah.
And if anything, we're round one. And if you can't get through our questioning or your questioning, then
Whoa, what is
there's no
this?
even reason to have to escalate it to having a conversation with an expert, because wow, this is the degree by which the expert class is lying about a topic that someone as dumb as me, take COVID, take green energy, take a lot of these topics that the expert class told us we weren't allowed to question, take the track record of this show. If anything, it's showcasing the degree by which the expert class is lying and abusing that title, that they fall apart under questioning, and they need to appeal to authority and go, hey, we can't have other people questioning this stuff. No one else is supposed to have an opinion. We need you to trust the experts. That's the only way that society functions. Well, then if you guys are the experts and we're not, you should be very comfortable to hop into the ideas, have the arguments, and dismantle them. And if you're unable to do that, maybe you shouldn't have the expert title, or maybe you're abusing it.
Yeah, but also
interesting.
Like, you know, it's right. And he would make some arguments or like that were things that, yeah, neither me nor Joe would have disagreed with. Like what he was saying, the thing where he was like, okay, I understand the experts have discredited themselves, but that doesn't mean we need to turn over every single stone or just have everything. And you're like, yeah, sure. Okay. That's why you have to be judicious about it. But like, now let's be judicious. We're here to talk about the issue. Let's see if you have an actual argument. Like it was enough. Like it almost felt like that whole thing, like what I was saying before.
Okay, is this entire thing just Dave bitching? Really? That's the entire segment. It's just Dave bitching about the debate that he clearly lost. By the way, just so you know, the person who won the debate was a neoconservative. All right? It just goes to show how far we've fallen, to the point where we are seeing this like absolute retarded conservative lose to a neoconservative like Douglas Murray, an old school conservative. Cringe.
Before, when I was like, it would kind of make sense if if he had refused the debate and then was saying why he refused the debate, and it was like, oh, this guy's beneath me, he's not an expert. Which, by the way, I thought I saw Sager and Jetty, who I love. He posted today, and he's like, he has a bachelor's in like English or something, like, which I didn't even know. He's like totally just not an expert on anything. So it's the weirdest argument to be making. But you know, so
I'm drinking more tea than you, Dave.
Yeah. So you know, well, he's but like he's making this argument, and there is something about it that and I'm not saying, like, again, it's like he's coming into a fight. It's like we've agreed to fight, and then before, like, It's just like when the bell rings, he's like, well, let's just do like, I just want to tell you for 40 minutes, like, I'm such a better fighter than you. I mean, it's crazy that I'm even fighting you. Like, this is just kind of ridiculous. Like, why would I fight someone like you? And I'm like standing here with my gloves up, like, yeah, okay, but like, are we, come on, I think we're going to fight now. And you can
Spiders.
show me if you're better than me at this. And then once it comes
Spiders.
to that, it's like he has nothing. It's always so shocking. Like, they just have nothing. The same way I felt after the Dennis Prague, he didn't have one like real argument. There wasn't anything that I said that it was like, oh shit, he took that on and really knew better than me. They'd be like,
Cool, so I have a weapon that can teleport spiders onto the enemy ship. Based. Just how I like it.
like, okay, you know, the World Bank said that the embargo and
I would debate Dave. I understand he can't understand his own words. He always cite or quote someone else. This is how you know he's a sheeple, all right? When he constantly quotes somebody else, it's because he doesn't even trust his own opinions. You see, somebody who doesn't trust their own opinions and follows somebody else and quotes them is a sheeple, all right?
96, which wasn't as severe as the full blockade that's been around it since 2007. They said just for the 1 year of it caused a 40% retraction in the economy of Gaza. You know, the Great Depression was a 30% contraction. So we gave them a Great Depression 1 year. Now you've had this blockade on them since 2007. What do you think that's done to the economy? And his response is, oh, so you trust the World Bank now? Very convenient. Like, is that really taking on the argument? Okay, maybe their estimate isn't perfect or whatever. Who's like, do you know, obviously.
You've also never seen the border crossing, so why would firm analytics like that even be able to complement your?
This may sound crazy, but I'm much more sympathetic to the neocon arguments after feeling what happens when Trump abandoned our position in the world and make enemies of everyone. I love certain parts of neocon, but most neocon is pretty bad, right? Like a lot of neocon, like a neoconservative would just have like stupid, I don't know, like wouldn't they support things like the war on drugs, but then they would still get behind and support like Ukraine? I feel like this is I think this is why Trump hates Rhino so much, right? Or the neoconservative old guard Republicans. It's because they really get under his skin for being neocons, and they have more like, compared to him, they have more interventionalist ideas, right? And less fucking dumbassery because they spent more time in politics than a fucking influencer for president.
Analysis.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's just totally ridiculous. Like just complete non-arguments. You'd only embrace these tactics if you had nothing. But I do think there's also, and I think part of the reason why, like that clip. Actually, Suarez, you want to see? You could, if you want to bring that up, maybe we could play that clip because I think this one was
Here comes the
was
spiders.
getting shared a lot, and I think it was one of the moments. It's, you know, I kind of felt like in a weird way, it was a little bit similar to the Cuomo debate dynamic where, like, when I debated Chris Cuomo, I had like this huge. It's by the way, Suarez, if you go to my Twitter, it's Chief Nerd posted it, so it's I retweeted it somewhere, but if you want to grab that, you know, I had this huge advantage when I debated Chris Cuomo because it's like the entire audience that we're talking to already decided they agree with me, not you on this. You know what I mean? Like we're talking about the Iraq war now. It's everybody agrees.
So you believe the US should intervene? Sounds like a neoliberal position. I don't think it's a neoliberal position. First of all, there's nothing wrong with being a neoliberal. Second of all, I don't think it's a neoliberal position to defend your allies that you have sworn to defend. I don't think it's a neoliberal position to defend your friends. I think it's a neoconservative, neoliberal, and altogether a good person. It's a good person position.
This thing was a mistake. There's no like, you know, it's as unanimous as an issue can get. And even though, somewhat ironically, even though like Donald Trump was the president through 2020 and was the, you know, the buck stops with him, he was the guy who made a lot of the terrible calls. Yet in our very interesting political climate, only 5 years later, Donald Trump's entire base is with Bobby Kennedy on the health stuff, not with, you know what I mean, any of that shit. Like everybody's rejected the COVID stuff as being bullshit. And so in the wake of that, the biggest thing that we've ever like collectively lived through, and there's this huge unanimous consent, or damn near close, that this unanimous agreement that, okay, yeah, all the experts got this wrong, all of this was bullshit, and all the mantra of trust the science and only listen to the experts was all just bullshit so that they could propagandize us with lies. For him to even be attempting to make that argument, I just have this I have this huge advantage, just because like the entire Rogan base is just like, oh yeah, but that's everything we just rejected. You're making the exact argument that we all just saw was complete bullshit. So I don't know. I think it was just, again, it was kind of handed to me. Okay, yeah, let's play the clip and then we could discuss a little, I guess. I do also think that one of the bigger kind of the bigger picture dynamics to all of this is that we have
Harry.
at least since 9/11 been in a state of perpetual war, and all of these wars have been disasters. They have been so many lies involved in selling all of them. I mean, the whole Iraq war, the whole war in Afghanistan, just lying the whole way through. I mean, I remember literally having conversations with Green Berets in the middle of the war in Afghanistan, and they're like, George W. Bush is telling you that the army we're building up there is really successful. This thing's going to fall in a week without us. And then all through the Obama administration, it's just like lie after lie after lie with disastrous wars. And so this does create a fertile ground for people to say, I wonder if they were lying about all these wars.
Sure.
Again, I'm not really trying to argue with you about World War II.
Hold on,
guys.
You know what?
Pause it for 1 second. I'll be, I'm sorry, I just got to run and open a door. I'll be right back. Anyway, okay. So, sorry. Where were we here? Okay, so I was talking about how we, they allowed us into all these wars. It's created fertile ground for people to believe they're lying about other things. All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show, which is Ridge Wallet. Ridge Wallet, they love these guys. You got to get a Ridge Wallet. I love it myself. I use it all the time. You don't need the old school, big, clunky, leathery wallet. It's throwing your spine out. It's not cool looking. The Ridge is unique, slim. Its modern design holds up to 12 cards plus cash. Everywhere it is says he doesn't know. He literally goes Daryl Cooper, and then something like that. And then Joe asked him at one point if he had ever consumed any of his work. He says, no, I don't need to. I don't know anything about him. He's talking about one line he said on Tucker Carlson's podcast. Then he's saying the problem with Daryl Cooper is that he takes a guy in Winston Churchill and judges him off one thing and doesn't look at his full body of work. That's what he's arguing. Does anybody see a
epic mic drop? That was so epic. That was so epic when he just paused there for a second. Oh god, that was so fucking epic. It gets all the girls wet.
problem there? $10 to for the first person who can point out the logical contradiction in that argument. Anyway, it's just unreal. Here, let's keep playing.